Let's talk about one of the issues that we're being impacted by that stems from this long history, of course, COVID-19. African Americans are dying at a rate higher than everyone else. Also, though, local and state governments across the country have set various social distancing guidelines and stay-at-home measures. But what happens if you're homeless? That's an issue. This is particularly true for people of color who are living on the streets in places like LA and other cities across the country. Joining me now to talk about what community organizations are doing to help is John Maceri, CEO for LA-based The People Concerned. John, glad to have you, Roland Unfiltered. Huge problem there in Los Angeles. They're moving people out of different places. This is happening in other cities where they're displacing the homeless. But look, they are also impacted by COVID-19.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you, Roland, for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you. And, you know, what we're seeing in Los Angeles is that Black and brown people are 2 times as likely to die from COVID-19 as the general population. We see in Angelenos experiencing homelessness that while Black people make up 8% of the county's population, they comprise 34% of people experiencing homelessness. So we have seen this structural, racism in our community play out in very real ways. So the pandemic has really laid bare the structural issues and inequalities that have been existing in communities of color, particularly Black and brown communities, for a very long time. And that's the reason why 6 of my colleagues here in Los Angeles joined me in sending a letter to our congressional delegation, and particularly working with Congresswoman Waters on working with local on-the-ground service providers who are working in these communities every single day and working on these disparities. And we have really lifted up the real issues and the impact of COVID-19 on communities of color. And so what we've been appealing to our government as these billions and hundreds of billions of dollars are flowing into states and counties to not forget that on-the-ground service providers like The People Concerned and others are working every day to move people indoors as quickly as possible so that we can address the negative impacts of COVID-19.
Folks, look, the numbers are real. 4.4 million confirmed cases of coronavirus in the United States. Guys, pull a graphic up, please. 2.14 million people have recovered and 151,000 have died. That number continues to go up. Some places, John, they are actually moving people into hotels that are empty, moving them into other places. You've got lots of downtown buildings. You've got parking structures that are empty. We saw something that was just shameful in Las Vegas, where they were marking off spots in a parking lot, and you had these 1,000+ rooms, several thousand room hotels that were wide open, and they were y'all can't come in here, but they were marking off spots in parking lots, open air parking lots, not even parking garages.
Yes. So here in Los Angeles, we've been involved in an effort called Project Room Key, with the goal of moving 15,000 people across the state inside. And in Los Angeles, we actually set a very ambitious goal to move 15,000 people indoors. So far, Project Room Key has brought in about 4,000 people, and we've been operating 2 sites. And what I can tell you is that these efforts have targeted the most vulnerable in Los Angeles. So these are people over 65, people with underlying health conditions who are highly susceptible to COVID-19, and the vast majority of them being people of color. And so we have seen in real time when there's a sense of urgency what government can do to actually move quickly and get thousands of people sheltered indoors. So there's no reason for us to be leaving people unsheltered outside when we have empty hotel rooms that can be repurposed to bring people into safe and sanitary conditions, where they have their own room, their own bathroom, they have access to food, to medical services, and then ultimately, of course, being able to connect them to permanent housing.
Last question for you. Are they even testing the homeless?
Oh, yes, there's wide-scale testing that's going on in Los Angeles. Our street outreach teams in Skid Row and across the county, but particularly in the Skid Row area, have been working on concentrated testing efforts for people experiencing homelessness, along with our partners at the Department of Public Health and Department of Health Services for the last several months. In addition to that, there have been wide-scale testing efforts in all of our interim housing facilities, which are congregate living facilities, as well as the test sites that are set up throughout the city and county of Los Angeles.
All right, then, John Maceri, we surely appreciate it. Thank you so very much for your work.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.